Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos a otra emisión más de Perfiles del 6 y en esta ocasión agradecemos la hospitalidad de la Embajada de Sudáfrica. Vamos a charlar con la actual embajadora Beryl Sisulu, quien antes de llegar a México estuvo en Japón, estuvo en Grecia y presentó sus cartas credenciales el año pasado. Tiene pocos meses en nuestra nación, pero vamos a platicar de diversos temas. Muchas gracias por recibirnos aquí en la embajada. Muy buenas tardes. Iniciamos con esta pregunta. Actualmente, ¿cómo define la relación entre los gobiernos de Sudáfrica y México?
Diplomatic relations between Mexico and South Africa were established 30 years ago. Prior to the 30 years, Mexico took a stand and decided to close their honorary consul in Cape Town, and together with other like-minded countries, called for sanctions on apartheid South Africa. Diplomatic relations between Mexico and South Africa are at a high level. Since they are at ministerial level, last year our deputy minister visited Mexico as a precursor to our minister's visit, which is scheduled to take place this year. However, due to elections in both our countries, we are not sure when such a visit is envisaged to take place. The fact that our relations are pitched at ministerial level means that as two countries, we take our relations very seriously. We also remember that in 1991, shortly after his release, Nelson Mandela visited Mexico to thank the Mexican people for the stand that they took against apartheid and their call for a free, democratic South Africa.
¿Cuál es la agenda prioritaria para Sudáfrica luego de 30 años de relaciones diplomáticas con nuestro país?
Thank you. While political relations are growing stronger between our two sisters countries, there is undoubtedly a need to deepen our relations further, especially our economic and commercial cooperation. Testimony to the growing relations between our countries is the signing of the joint declaration from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mexico and the Department of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa at the third meeting of the Mechanism for Consultations on Issues of Mutual Interest between Deputy Minister Cameron Moreno Toscano and our Deputy Minister Alvin Buertas in Mexico City on the 15th of August in 2023. Among other things, the third meeting of the Mechanism for Consultations on Issues of Mutual Interest, the governments of Mexico and South Africa, in the framework of the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations, reaffirmed the importance of our bilateral political and economic relations in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in light of the ongoing transformation in the global arena, as well as national and regional levels. We have agreed inter alia on the following actions. Determined to increase collaboration and deeper commitment in celebration of the third binational commission at ministerial level on a mutually convenient date, with the purpose of setting the general guidelines for our bilateral relations in the following spheres: political, economic, trade, energy, science, technical, education, cultural, sport, and law enforcement.
Vamos a otros temas porque Sudáfrica tiene un papel muy importante en la geopolítica internacional. Recientemente tomó la decisión de acusar a Israel de genocidio a una corte internacional. ¿Por qué esa decisión?
It is important to note that the ICJ exists to peacefully settle disputes between nations. There are long-standing ties between South Africa's Black liberation struggle and the people of Palestine. Mandela, in 1990, made a statement saying, "We identify with the PLO because, just like ourselves, they are fighting for the right of self-determination." This also signals the country's desire to challenge the US-dominated international order that is seen as unfair to African and non-Western interests, and does so using an internationally respected body. In South Africa's 84-page application to the ICJ, it states that the acts and omissions by Israel are genocidal in character, as they are intended to bring about the destruction of a substantial part of the Palestinian people, and that this is in violation of the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. We must remember that both Israel and South Africa are signatories to the United Nations Genocide Convention, which gives the ICJ, the highest UN legal body, the jurisdiction to rule on disputes over the treaty. All states that have signed the convention are obliged not to commit genocide and to prevent it and to punish it. The ICJ has heard the arguments on the matter. However, we know that under international humanitarian law, proving allegations of genocide are incredibly difficult. We also know that the ICJ's decisions are not necessarily easy to enforce. However, I do think that South Africa has made the necessary call to invoke the urgency of this inhumane treatment and illegal occupation of the Palestinian people. The world has heard.
¿Qué respuesta tuvo precisamente este planteamiento ante la Corte Internacional?
Even though the court, in its ruling, did not per se call for a ceasefire, it should be noted that the court did rule that the claims are plausible. This case also creates a firm and objective historical record, which is important in situations like these where political tensions are high. The ruling itself may not have ended the war. However, it has started the clock ticking on the future of Israel. Even though Israel continues to act with impunity, it could be declared as genocide in the final ruling of the ICJ, and Israel will become a pariah state that will stand utterly alone and condemned by the world. South Africa also brought on this case because we, as South Africans, know the murderous rules of apartheid when we see it, and this is what we see in the ongoing domination of the Palestinian people. We have also seen a number of countries expressing their horror and dismay at the continued heinous attacks of genocide against the Palestinian people. The UK Foreign Secretary announced that a way has now been paved for the recognition of the state of Palestine. Mexico, as we know, has also taken a stand on international conflicts as stipulated in its constitution. This reminds me of the role Mexico played during our apartheid struggle. Several other countries like Chile, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Jordan, Bolivia, Colombia, Guatemala, and Brazil, to name a few, have welcomed the ICJ case that the allegations on genocide by Israel against the Palestinians in Gaza are plausible.
En los últimos años se ha buscado un equilibrio de fuerzas a nivel mundial. ¿La conformación del BRICS busca ese camino?
Indeed, in the post-Cold War era, and currently there are several state actors that play a prominent role in shaping global politics, which leads to a multipolar world. We have seen the emerging market economies formations play their part in seeking the balance of forces path to prevent the situation whereby one nation or nations impose its or their will on or interfering with the interests of other states. It is important for all voices to be heard. BRICS was established as a forum of like-minded, progressive emerging markets and developing countries, committed to the need to restructure the global political, economic, and financial architecture to be more equitably balanced and representative. Over the last 15 years, the cooperation within BRICS has grown substantially across all three pillars of cooperation, namely political and security, financial and economic, and social people-to-people cooperation. BRICS has an opportunity to shape and play a leading role in the emerging world order. Its members have shared interests as we share a common vision of the world of the future, namely one in which countries of the global south have a say in global governance organizations, as well as the opportunity and the power to reshape the global structure and the rules to benefit all, including the global south. BRICS constantly and consistently calls for a deepened international consensus on multilateralism, respect for international law, and a reformed global order that is more equitable, inclusive, and representative of current global realities.
¿Cuántas economías emergentes se han sumado al BRICS tras la cumbre de Johannesburgo?
The historic decision on BRICS membership expansion in 2023 has shown the world that BRICS is willing to reform itself, increasing its own voice and representativity and adapting to changing realities. The new BRICS membership currently includes Brazil, China, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Iran, Russian Federation, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and the United Emirates. We know that Argentina withdrew its acceptance as a member following its change of government, but we are also aware that there are several more requests from countries to join BRICS.
¿Cómo observa el gobierno de Sudáfrica la lucha contra la desigualdad social en América Latina? ¿Es posible crear un mecanismo inclusivo para revertirla?
South Africa has been focused on trying to bring down poverty and reduce inequality, and it's had some success. We have a huge unemployment challenge, especially of the youth. That should be addressed. These challenges have a black face due to our painful apartheid past. Post-apartheid, and the government launched affirmative action policies, which also include the broad-based Black economic empowerment programs to promote Black people's participation in the formal economy. South Africa has invested heavily in social programs, including free primary education, a plan for universal health care, infrastructure projects to expand access to clean water, and minimum income grants to indigent parents. There is also a Black industrialist policy to leverage the state's capacity to unlock the industrial potential that exists within Black-owned and managed businesses that operate within the South African economy through deliberate, targeted, and well-defined financial and non-financial interventions, as described in the Industrial Policy Action Plan, known as IPAP, and other government policies. Regarding your region, UNDP Latin America and the Caribbean report of 21st of June 21 states that despite the progress of recent decades, countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are more unequal than countries in other regions with similar levels of development, and their social indicators are still below those expected for their average income level. There are similarities between social inequality challenges between South Africa and the Latin American countries. Most of these challenges are due to our colonial past, where racial and ethnic divisions were sowed by the erstwhile colonizers with the main purpose of extracting raw materials from our regions and countries to their metropoles. In addressing these social inequalities, we need to share information and ideas on how to move away from these challenges, which will assist all of us to attain social inclusion, which will ultimately lead to economic inclusion for all our peoples. There are no shortcuts, but a need to deliberate and targeted programs from all our governments to address these challenges are needed. Thank you.
Finalmente, agradecemos el tiempo para Canal 6 Televisión y reconocemos en estos tiempos convulsos, con guerras, con mundos desiguales, el papel que está jugando Sudáfrica a través del legado del expresidente Nelson Mandela, que se hace presente hoy día precisamente en el Concierto de las Naciones, donde Sudáfrica está teniendo un papel muy importante para buscar un mejor mundo, un mundo menos desigual. Muchísimas gracias y reconocemos el trabajo de Sudáfrica en el Concierto de las Naciones.
Thank you. I think I would just like to comment and say that it is not unique that we are supporting Palestine. South Africa, as we know, we attained our democracy in a peaceful manner, and we have been vocal about peace. We have been vocal about our stance on Morocco and the Sahrawian people. My president, with other African presidents, took a trip to the Ukraine and to Russia to try and broker peace with the two countries. It was not successful because one country did not come back, which was Ukraine. We also have peacekeeping forces that assist in the war-torn countries. We have been part of the United Nations peacekeeping forces since 1999. We have assisted in Burundi, in the DRC, in Mozambique, in Nepal, in Sierra Leone. We have peacekeeping forces there. So it's nothing new that we are vocal about Palestine. This is what South Africa has done. We are very pro-human rights. We are preaching for peace. And we think because we attained our democracy in a peaceful way, we think and feel that other countries can also broker peace by negotiating.
Con esto llegamos al final. Muchísimas gracias a la Embajada de Sudáfrica, a la embajadora Beryl Rose Sisulu, a todo su equipo por este espacio para Canal 6 Televisión. Nosotros nos despedimos, nos vemos en otra emisión más aquí en Canal 6 Televisión en Perfiles del 6. Muy buenas tardes.